The human brain is the most complex object in the known universe, and, at the same time, the least understood. The brain is the control center for all bodily functions, not just movement. More importantly, it is the center of the mind and higher functions that are specific to humans. The human brain is so complex, so efficient in energy use, and so powerful, that evolutionist theories cannot explain its origin. If a simple neuron, the body of which measures less than a tenth of a millimeter, surprises us by its organization and intelligent design, how much more surprising is the brain, being made of millions of interconnected neurons which are capable of making decisions, thinking, loving and believing. In addition to oxygen, glucose is the most important need of the brain. But not just any source of glucose is healthy, it has to come from foods rich in vegetable fiber. The brain is a big oxygen consumer, surpassed only by the liver. Although its weight is only 2% of the body's weight, it consumes 20% of all of the oxygen carried by the blood. This means it consumes 10 times more oxygen than the average for the rest of the body. Glucose comes from the digestion of food and from stocks in the liver in the form of glycogen. With the exception of neutrons, all of the body's cells need insulin in order to transport glucose from the bloodstream into the cell. Neurons do not need insulin in order to obtain glucose, which is the reason that in insulin-deficient diabetes, neurons continue receiving their supply of glucose as long as the blood contains at least 80 milligrams of glucose per 100 milliliters. Glucose is the primary fuel for neurons. Without glucose, the brain cannot work, since this sugar that is so abundant in nature is responsible for nourishing the electrical mini-command center present in each neuron. All of the complex chemical reactions happening inside of the brain require the presence of glucose. Energy consumed by the human brain, the brain alone consumes 460 call in 24 hours, a fifth of the 2,300 call that the average adult consumes. All starches and sugars from food are eventually converted to glucose during digestion. However, glucose coming from healthy sources such as whole grains, tubers, or fruits that are high in fiber is not the same as when it comes from refined sweets or candy. When you want to improve glucose supply to the brain, you should have a hearty breakfast. Breakfast including preferably whole grains, tubers such as potato, cassava, and the like, or legumes like in Mexico. This guarantees the glucose supply to the brain for the whole morning and improves school and work performance. You can boil with water, roast, or even dip fry according to your style and taste. Whole grains are rich in vegetable fiber, which regulates the release of glucose during digestion and allows its level to remain suitable in the blood. All of these foods have a low glycemic index, which that they do not raise the blood sugar very much after being consumed. Cassava is more drought-resistant than the sweet variety that is usually grown, but it contains much more cyanide. This toxin degenerates the brain's motor neurons. So to eliminate cyanide, cassava must be properly processed by soaking and toasting. These are some of the chemical protection for the brain. Habitual consumption of improperly processed cassava or manioc causes an incurable leg paralysis called konzo in Congo. Neurons cannot store up glucose and therefore they must continually receive it from the blood. Not too much of the glucose, not too little. In order to function correctly, the brain requires that the blood flowing through it maintain a consistent glucose level between lower limits and upper limits. In lower limits, 80 milligrams of glucose for every 100 milliliters of blood. When the glucose level falls below this, the brain performance starts to decrease. In upper limits, around 180 milligrams per 100 milliliters of blood. Diabetes well known that when their blood glucose level increases too much due to poor control, they feel uncomfortable and irritable. When the glucose level goes above 400 milligrams per 100 milliliters of blood, the brain can barely function, and coma ensues. Okay guys, there are lots of issues here to be explained, but first allow me to give you this protection habits to help you sail through these challenges. Avoid alcohol. Experimental research has definitely shown that alcohol consumption causes neuron death, even in moderate doses. Each drink of alcohol causes irreversible damage in the brain, which is even worse in higher amounts. These days, alcohol consumption is one of the primary causes of neuron deterioration. Abstain from tobacco. The nicotine in tobacco causes vasoconstriction of the cerebral arteries, which limits blood flow to the brain and the oxygen supply to the neurons. Abstain from drugs. In addition to the legal drugs such as alcohol and tobacco, all other drugs also damage the brain. Cocaine, heroin, marijuana, and designer drugs attack neurons directly, and their habitual use causes mental deterioration and dementia. Lastly, avoid coffee and other caffeinated beverages. Although in low doses caffeine seems to improve attention and fight feelings of fatigue, it causes nervousness and anxiety in higher doses. Thank you friends for watching.